thought you were going to say the fantastic Mr. Moon then. But,
well, you are fantastic, Mr. Moon, if you're doing the golf day.
Yeah, it's next Friday. For any non-golfers that want to make a voluntary donation, if they see me later, there's no magic envelope, but it'll just go straight into the fund. So, Sean, I'm sure you'd like to make a donation.
Yeah, why not?
So would people be able to come along and just have a go if you don't play golf?
No.
No, okay. I'll buy some plastic sticks later.
No, but hopefully we shall get a few pennies for you. But any donations are gladly accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item is, the next bit of my thing is the Easter raffle. So we're going to draw these. Oh, you've done it. Da, 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 da. So we sold 109 balls, tickets, whatever they are, invisible things. We raised £219. The first one is item 5, Tom Bracken, who is staff. So he's going to get the big basket, the hamper. The second one is Liz Myforth, who is also staff, and she's number 17. That's the second one. The third one,
a big cuddly toy.
Oh gosh, is Howard Ballard. You better donate it back. Probably matches Howard. So you've got Bunny. Actually, looks a bit like you forgot your ears.
I'll be hopping mad if I do that.
So thank you for everybody who's contributed tonight. That's wonderful. Right, we better get on to serious business now, haven't we? So we're now moving on to item 5. Let's be serious. That's why I'm not dressed up tonight, so we can have a proper meeting. So, item 5, public questions and statements. However, there are no questions from the public this evening, so we'll now move on to item 6. Item 6, questions on notice from councillors. Again, there are no questions on notice from councillors. I think it's bank holiday weekend, isn't it? You're waiting to go home. So, item 7, executive reports. The first, the report of the leader of the council. Councillor David Henderson, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. I'd just like to make a comment about 2.3, which actually bears into 2.10. And at the previous, the April the 6th meeting of the district leaders and the Lancashire leaders, because some of Lancashire are in thirds with elections, it was decided that until the elections are out of the way and the dust settles on who will be leaders in certain parts of Lancashire, because they will not be the same leaders as now, that we will recommence the meetings well after the election. So I have nothing else to report on this, Madam Mayor, and when I have something after the next Lancashire leaders meetings, I will try to bring something back to Council. Happy to take questions, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Henderson. At paragraph 2.2, you refer to the potential reopening of the Poulton-to-Fleetwood rail line. The Labour Group have campaigned for the reinstatement of the Poulton-to-Fleetwood rail link and have worked with and supported the Back on Track team for many years. The reinstatement of the Poulton-to-Fleetwood rail line is essential to not only improve connectivity and address congestion in the west of the borough, but also the required economic regeneration and the future prosperity of residents living in Fleetwood, Thornton and Cleveleys. You mentioned you met Paul Maynard MP in your report. Given he's been a local MP for 12 long years and was previously the Under-Secretary of State for Transport, why has he not already dealt with this? Is he aware of the local desire and economic necessity for this rail link? A railway, I might add, that was recklessly removed by a previous Conservative government. Have you impressed upon him the urgency of this matter to the prosperity and the needs of the Wyre residents? Will he and you now help to deliver the Poulton-to-Fleetwood rail link, preferably before the ever-increasing levels of deprivation in Fleetwood, Cleveland and Thornton get even worse than they are today?
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. It was Paul Maynard who actually invited Neil O'Brien to come to Poulton the other week, which Neil O'Brien agreed to do so, purely and simply to look at the railway situation of the Fleetwood to Poulton line. And I was invited along naturally as the leader of Wyre, but also because the railway station's in my ward as well. And my ward is the most affected by the parking every single day in Poulton by people coming up to Poulton railway station from Thornton, maybe from Fleetwood, and using the railways, which is great, but they just park on the streets and they block them up. So I can't speak for Paul Maynard, but I can certainly speak for myself. I have been a supporter of this all the way through, and I still am. Even if I'm a selfish supporter, because I'm sick and tired of people parking outside my house all day. There's a very nice Range Rover outside my house, which unfortunately is not mine. It's been there for 3 weeks. We know full well, because we saw the people getting out of it with the little pull-along trolley luggage to get on a train to go to Manchester, to get on a plane, to go on holiday. And they'll come back again this weekend and get back in the car and might even just go to Thornton or Fleetwood where they live. That's what it's like. So I push for it, and I will not stop pushing for it as well. Anybody who's behind this will get my full support. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At paragraph 2.7, you refer to one of the county deal themes, and it states, to level up green action and investment in Lancashire to achieve our pathway to net zero carbon emissions, protecting our natural environment and neighbourhoods, investing in carbon reduction measures and transforming housing quality. All good stuff. So I'm just wondering, after the last council meeting, if you could clarify your thoughts and that of this council's. In particular, I'm very interested to know what if you think supporting the return of fracking is compatible with the county deal wish to protect our natural environment and neighbourhood and achieve a pathway to net zero carbon emissions.
It's not in our area, it's in Files, and it's up to the individual to decide whether they wish to support fracking or not. And I'm certainly, at this moment, sitting looking at all of you, not going to commit one way or the other.
Councillor Minto?
I can just say that any of us are going to do a test bore site hole on I think it's the Grangemouth site they own, to prove either rightly or wrongly that fracking is safe or not. So that's where we're up to on the fracking at the moment. Thank you.
No more questions, so that concludes the consideration of the Leader's report. We will now move on to the report of the Resources Portfolio Holder. Item B, Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before members.
Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Vincent? Sir Robert, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed. Can I ask Councillor Vincent, bearing in mind the publicity that's surrounding those areas of deprivation throughout the country, but specifically in our borough, if he could expand a little bit on the item 4 within his report and what we are doing or could do or will do for those who are considerably worse off than we are.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Atkins. I think it's very important to stress that this council doesn't wait for cost of living crises to do what we can to help the residents of Wyre. We do that all the time. We implement policies that are fair on the most deprived people in this borough. The local council tax support scheme being the primary example of that. Our rate is set at the lowest we can set it at. Other areas, many of which Labour controlled, have much higher rates than we do. So, you know, we do what we can already. We're distributing the government money, and that's a consistent theme as a council, and that's that we don't have pots of money ourselves to distribute to people, but what we do is deliver the funding that's available to us to the people who need it most, and we do that very well. We've currently distributed over £1 million to 7,000 residents in terms of the bands A to D support with heating bills. £270,000 has been distributed for the Household Support Fund, which went live in January. We've used our full allocation of £270,000 by the end of April, and then we'll get another £270,000 from Lancashire County Council. And because we distribute the money, people are happy to give it to us. Other councils in Lancashire, various political persuasions, don't distribute it as well as we do. We already support the Citizens Advice Bureau, who provide a lot of free debt advice and support in the community. £52 million in business grants was distributed during the pandemic. And we'll also be launching the COVID-19 Additional Relief Scheme in May, which will distribute business rate support to businesses that need it. Madam Mayor, in addition to the care and repair team who do ongoing excellent work, Madam Mayor, we have officers in this council who are absolutely dedicated to what they do, and the finance team down to the officers on the ground do a brilliant job of targeting that support where it's needed and crucially getting the money out. So thank you for your question, Councillor Atkins, and I hope that answers it.
There's no more questions, so I'll comment. That concludes the consideration of the resources portfolio. Now move on to item C, Streets, Scene, Parks and Open Spaces portfolio holder. Councillor Henderson, in absence of Councillor Bridge, would you please introduce Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. I will try to answer any questions that I can, but any questions that I can't answer will get a written reply. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor.
Okay, item 7C. There were only 3 fixed penalty notices issued for dog-related offences, as opposed to 306 for littering. The figures at 3.4 suggest district enforcement are prioritising littering fines over dog fouling. Why would district enforcement do this? Is it because they work on a profit motive and littering fines required less work than dog fouling fines? With increasing occurrences of dog fouling during the autumn and winter months, does this not send out completely the wrong message to those not picking up after their dogs? Has the use of district enforcement freed up Wyre's environmental enforcement officers to deal with fly tipping, which is on the rise nationally? Would it be possible to provide in future reports, statistics on the numbers of fines issued for and other action taken against Wyre fly tippers?
Thank you, Councillor Swales. That certainly warrants a written reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope you can help, Councillor Henderson. There was recently a fire at the duck pond in Cleveley's, which was a beloved shelter which is almost 100 years old. I was wondering if you could update me on the insurance claim by the council and when the structure can and if it can be repaired and brought back to its former glory in line with the council's existing workload and schedule.
I can update you a little on it because I've been briefed on part of it that would come to me. I do know that the police have done house-to-house and CCTV on that, and unfortunately haven't come up with anything. However, that doesn't stop us proceeding on it, and I do know that the insurance claim has been put in. When that insurance claim is okayed, I believe, then it will go out to tender. And one thing I am told is it will be, once that process is done, it will be rebuilt like for like. Can't give you any timings though.
Councillor Minto.
Yes, Chair. It's a recurring question asked by ex-councillor Dr. Mike Powell. At the end of Underbank Road on the Rakes Road junction, there used to be a four-seater seat. This fell into disrepair, and since I've been a councillor, this has raised its head about 6 or 7 times. I did ask Councillor Bridge, are they going to replace it, whereby he put me onto an officer of the council who said it was nothing to do with us, it's Lancashire County Council's. I then went to Lancashire County Council who said it's nothing to do with us, it's Wyre Borough's. So we need some clarification here, and please can we just replace this seat that is much missed by dog walkers alike. Thank you.
Do these dog walkers pick up after themselves? Because if they don't, they're not having anything.
Well, I quite agree with you, but if I'm behind then they'll pick it up.
Righto. And I suppose you want me to take up on this, don't you, in the absence of Councillor Bridge? I shall find the right person to ask the correct question of, whether it be LCC or Wyre Borough.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Please would you pass on my thanks to Sandra Byrne for the one bag big difference. It's the Great British Clean Litter Pickup. What a fantastic event we had, and I'm sure many of you councillors would have turned up to the events that were advertised through the borough. Fantastic. The public came out, we got lots of rubbish, so please will you thank her for all the good work that she does. So that concludes the consideration of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to item D, Planning Policy and Economic Development Portfolio Holder. Councillor Collinson, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before councillors. I'm willing to take any questions.
Councillor Fail?
Sorry.
Thank you. It was sad to hear of the sudden resignation of the entire Stalmine Parish Council. But what was more concerning were some of the claims. Some developments and businesses are operating outside planning consent and some with no planning permission. Wyre seems reluctant to enforce conditions on developers who breach planning rules. A Wyre Council spokesperson is reported as saying, if the cases that there has been a breach of planning control, we investigate all alleged breaches brought to our attention. Formal enforcement action is always a last resort and should never be automatically used whenever a breach of planning control is identified. In most cases, matters can be resolved without formal action. Now, I'm sure all the alleged breaches are being investigated, but the questions to be asked are, firstly, are those investigations being done quickly enough to stop unapproved developments from progressing to completion? If not, then does this not indicate there is still a staffing level issue, I should say? And secondly, should formal enforcement action be taken more frequently than it currently is? Thank you.
I'm not aware of the... So maybe Councillor Bowen could answer some of those questions that I can't. Because it's only on the enforcement you're asking about, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, the fact is Stalmine Parish
Yeah.
is a moot point.
Yeah.
It could be anybody. The issue is around whether we're investigating, and I think the answer is yes, we are investigating.
Yes.
Is it quickly enough? And from experience I'm getting residents in Cleveland saying, complaining about the speed of them being investigated. So the question is, have we got the right staffing levels to deal with it? I see the numbers coming down, and that's
Yes.
good. But I'm just wondering whether we're dealing with the issues quickly enough and actually stopping them. You know, rather than just identifying the issue and letting them carry on to completion, should we not be stopping these people from actually building something they're not allowed to be building?
Councillor Collinson, the Chief Exec's going to come in.
Just to try and assist, in terms of staffing matters, that's something that I have responsibility for, ultimately not a portfolio holder. But I can tell you that we did actually invest in the enforcement team to reduce significantly the caseload, and that has been successful. If caseloads increase again, we will repeat that, because I am fully aware that whilst planning enforcement, believe it or not, is not a statutory requirement, it does create, I am fully aware, the greatest inbox, should we say, emails for you as elected members. So you can be assured that we will deal with matters as and when required from a staffing point of view.
Thank you. So are there any more questions on item D? No? So that concludes the consideration of the planning policy and economic development portfolio holders report. We will now move on to the report of the Neighbourhood Services Community Safety Portfolio Holders Report, which is item E. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before colleagues. I'll do my best to answer any questions raised.
Councillor Atkins first, then Sir Robert.
So we'll now go on to questions and comments for Councillor Berry. Councillor Lady Atkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2.1, Homes for Ukraine. How does Wyre, as regards Lancashire, how do we stand as regards welcoming these refugees into the borough? How many homes and that type of thing is happening?
I understand that our housing team have looked at 23 properties where the owners have indicated that they would like to sponsor refugees from Ukraine. They've done that quite promptly. I understand that at the present time we've only got about 4 people from the Ukraine in Wyre. 3 of them are, in fact, I think this has been mentioned in the press, are at Russell School, and there was something in the Evening Gazette about that. And the school has found them some accommodation, which is a wonderful offer from them. And I think it's worth mentioning the school's also offered to educate, I think it's about six children from the Ukraine. So I think we should commend their effort that they're making. As regards the rest of Lancashire, I think it's very hard to determine how we place. I think we're in the midst of the figures, but it's the question of how many turn up actually, because they've got to go through the obvious procedures of getting into the country.
Before we just move on to the next person to ask a question, we need to cut short our answers, maybe. We've got a lot of people wanting to speak tonight. So next is Sir Robert Atkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Berry, your portfolio has got a very good reputation working particularly amongst some of the homeless problems that we have in the borough. Given my question earlier to Councillor Vincent about the problems of those areas of deprivation, I wonder if you and your officers have given any thought to keeping an eye open for particular problems where we can at least guide the social agencies if necessary, or can help ourselves if that is practical.
I mean, answering your question, because it's quite a wide question, answering your question, first of all, For many a year now, we've tried to make sure that we can house people who offer themselves as homeless by working with social housing providers and private landlords. We try and ensure good relationships with those sort of people. Secondly, when we do get people find accommodation, we try to ensure that they'll be able to cope with the terms of the tenancy. That sort of covers sort of matters such as managing a budget, because some do, find it very difficult to sort these things out like that, and also any social issues that they may present, because often they do, and we try and get them to the relevant agencies to make sure that that will not become a problem with their landlords, so that they can keep the tenancy. And finally, on the disabled facilities grants, we do go a long way to ensure not only that we provide the equipment, we get the equipment to the relevant people, but we also try and make sure that they're claiming all the benefits they're entitled from the state. A lot of people have, got the benefit of attendance allowances. We've tried to ensure that they're aware of their rights to claim sort of benefits. So there is a lot of extra work put in by the housing team, not only to find housing and to help people in the homes, but to make sure that they're benefiting from the system that's available. Thank you.
Councillor Cartridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose running on a theme here, I'd just like to say how pleased I am about the formation of the MASP within the borough. It's another fantastic example of how the council are working for those communities which really do need the help. It's an excellent initiative which will really safeguard the children within the borough.
I think I would just better clarify the matter. In fact, it is a multi-agency support panel forming the police, children's social care, education, health and other agencies, and we are one of the other agencies that's taking part in this scheme. It's designed to give support to children and their families, especially where the children are obviously showing vulnerability, exploitation, or if there's any sudden change in their demeanour and what they're doing in life. We want to give support to these children and their families and see what information and opportunities we can give to them. So we want to be very active in that, because alongside that we still got our ASB teams, and they want to learn a lot from what's going to come out from this panel. What's the best opportunities we can take in the future in dealing with people who come before ASB.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's just a quick thanks to Councillor Berry for his assistance in a few problems that I had in Cleveland. Thank you.
A pleasure to help. I mean, I'm sorry about what's happened at the duck pond at Homefield Avenue. It's very sad to see that sort of thing, and I'm equally sad that those that have been responsible for that, because I think the consensus is that it is a result of ASB. They've not been brought to task, but it has brought to the attention of people the value of our amenities, and that we do need to look after them and take care of them. And I did make some suggestions about where we should put litter bins and all that, so we don't give ready fuel to somebody who's got arson in mind.
Councillor Fairbanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would it be possible if I could request this little bit is stopped recording, please, because it's quite confidential what I have to say, and it's not for the members of the public to be.
No, I'm sorry, we can't do that, because full council is open to members of the public, even though we don't have any members of the public who've attended tonight. We do record it, so unfortunately we couldn't stop the meeting. Just for you to ask a question or make a statement to the executive.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll do my best to see the council after the meeting.
Thank you.
See what I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Councillor Longton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Back to 2.1, Homes for Ukraine. There are Ukrainian refugees in Wyre who haven't come through the Homes for Ukraine scheme. I know because 3 of them are relatives of mine. They came in on a family visa. Now, I have been in touch with the refugee integration team at Lancashire County Council, who've effectively advised us to seek legal immigration advice and contact third sector. So obviously, because they didn't come through on the Homes for Ukraine scheme, they don't seem to be able to access the official assistance that's being made available. So I wondered if you were aware of what assistance can be provided to Ukrainian refugees that are in Wyre, having not come through on the official scheme. Thank you.
Well, I think that they should seek the advice, I would have thought, initially of Lancashire County Council, who may have better information than we can give. I think our duty at the moment is very much relating to housing and payment of those who are sponsoring and dealing with any issues that may be raised in those people living within the existing community. That's, as I understand it, is Wyre's commitment. I think that other matters, such as immigration, needs to be dealt with by the Home Office. To be quite honest, I don't think we could get too involved in that.
Councillor Turner. Sean Turner, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in reference to 2.5 disabled facilities grants, brilliant job we do, and as Councillor Vincent mentioned earlier, we're really good at getting that stuff out, and I was approached recently by a member of my ward who wanted to pass on their thanks for a process that, in their words, worked like clockwork. Got all the stuff in, wanting to get his wife out and back home where it's the safest place to be, and so he just wanted to pass on his thanks. So a brilliant job we do.
Yeah, they really do. And I spoke to Mr. Walters, who heads up that section. He did say
that concludes the consideration of the Neighbourhood, Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holders Report. We'll now move on to item F, Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holder. Councillor Bowen, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from Councillor Bowden? Bowen, sorry. Councillor Gerard, please.
I was believing that the government are offering a grant for the extra costs of the heating of the swimming pools. Have we requested this grant yet? And another question, could it be possible that we bring forward the LED lighting at our leisure centres, because the return now has dropped from 3 years to 18 months. After we've expenditured the money, the savings will come back in 18 months. That's not a good return.
Thanks for that. As far as I know, I don't know anything about any grants for heating for the leisure centres, but I'll make inquiries and find out about that. But we work very closely with the YMCA, trying to find ways we can make the energy more efficient, and obviously it's cheaper for us and cheaper for them to run the centres. There is a meeting with the YMCA at the end of the month where the LED lights will be mentioned, and also we're looking at new covers for the swimming pools so that the heat can be retained more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's obviously a comment, as members are aware, that the North West Stages rally took place on Friday the 18th and Saturday the 19th. Friday the 18th, obviously, it was held at Garstang, where exceeds of over 4,000 people attended the start of that. And obviously on the Saturday was the rally, and obviously it was a success with competitors and spectators. This is just some information I've got from them. The organisers are expected to donate around 14,000 to local-based charities and community causes, and at the moment they are proactively seeking feedback from all residents on the closed road route, and this is due to be completed in mid-May. And obviously the information for future events, and they just would like to say they are grateful for the ongoing support that has been provided by Wyre Borough Council. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it was a fantastic event, and also it brings so much money into the borough. All the hotels, bed and breakfast, restaurants were all fully booked for the weekend. It was absolutely fantastic for them, so good for businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there any possibility, Councillor Bowen, that the Free Kids Club could be opened up to working people and not just those children that are claiming free meals, especially under the circumstances at the moment with, you know, the cost of living and inflation, and it's going to really hit hard on working families as well as, you know, all, you know, free meals.
Yeah, it is open to other families as well, but they have to pay a minimal fee. Whether that will be lowered, seen as in the circumstances that we're in now, I don't know. But it's so popular. But yeah, that they are quite welcome to go if there's the places available. We'll have to look at how much they're going to. We can have a good look at how much they're going to charge just for ordinary working people, that kids aren't having free meals.
£12.50 a day, which I think is really, I think that's quite reasonable for a full day.
Yeah, you're quite right, because they get loads of activities, they get taken all over the place, and they get a free meal as well. Yeah.
That concludes. Pardon?
Can I go?
Oh, right. That concludes the consideration of the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holders Report. Now is the opportunity for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on the reports of their colleagues. Do any Cabinet members wish to do so?
Michael Vincent.
Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Collinson, please. Just with regards to both the forthcoming item on the agenda and also the comments at paragraph 2.1 and 2.2 of her report. Does Councillor Collinson agree with me that it's very important that members act responsibly when discussing what is to be reviewed and is within the remit of the partial review of the local plan and what is not? The partial review is and must be limited to the clearly set out agenda. It shall, we believe, ensure that Wyre can demonstrate a housing supply that will allow us to protect the green belt and resist development outside of the areas identified within the local plan for a longer period than we currently have a prospect of defending them for. The full review is the opportunity for members to revisit the plan fully and its policies. I myself have a list of concerns and issues with the current plan and its policies, and I will be feeding those into the review at the appropriate time, but that time is not tonight.
Councillor Collison, do you want to respond, please?
Yes, thank you for that, Michael. It is important when the partial review was taken, we did this was due to basically the reduction in the housing stock, which was it used to be 460, now it's been reduced. So we've had to tweak the partial review, of which the planning policy and the officers have actually done this. So it's just on the partial review, this has now go to government. But on the full review, which went live on the 27th of January 2022, the only thing that's started on that now is that the call went out for new sites for the planning, for the areas people could put in for planning. But these are now being, we've had over 100 people putting in sites, so this is purely for the full local plan, which is a 2-year. So you've got 2 years to put in anything you want to go into the full for the local plan. But the partial review was purely and simply for the reduction of the housing stock, and we have to keep a 5-year supply, and we have to actually at the moment we've got a 6.4 to 9 points for the supply now, but we have to keep it at that level. So it's just on the partial review.
No other comments? That concludes the consideration of the executive reports. We will now move on to the agenda item 8, which is the Treasury Management Policy, Annual Investment Strategy, Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statements and the Capital Strategy for 2022-23. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce your report and propose the recommendations? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks go to Claire James and her team for this. This is one of the least interesting of the reports of my very interesting reports that come to you. So it's just say dry rather than interesting. But it's extremely important. Risk management when it comes to managing public funds is extremely important. This is a thorough policy. There's a lot of money invested on behalf of this council and its residents, because none of this is our money. So it's very important. This is thorough and comprehensive. A lot of work goes into this. So thanks to Claire and the team, and I'm happy to recommend that. Propose that, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Happy to second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No, so we'll now move on to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Where am I to? Now move on to item 9. The Wyre Local Plan Partial Review 2011 to 2031. Councillor Collinson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Robin Atkins, put your hand up. Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Happy to second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Sir Robert Atkins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It follows on a little bit from what Councillor Vincent was just asking Councillor Collinson. I wonder if she could just spell out for us, for the benefit of all of the members of the Council, what exactly the relationship is between the partial review and the full review in terms of submissions that either individually or collectively we may make as councillors or as council committee members. Thinking in the context of my own working group on the climate change thing, you will, through you, and you will be aware that there is a number of people who are expressing interest. I just want to get the time frame and the method clear so that we can all participate with good effect.
Sorry, Councillor. The partial review has already been gone through by the planning policy at the officers, and this is now going to come, as it's come to full council this evening. That will go to government. The partial review had to be done because of the balance of the numbers that I mentioned before, and if we don't do a partial review, then we can have people who literally would just start building anywhere, maybe on Greenbelt, and it is a legal obligation for this council to do the partial review. And then it would, if we have that, we have a legal framework that can stop unwanted developments. The full review is a 2-year plan, of which it is open to suggestions from councillors and members of the public. It went live on the 27th of January, and at the start of it was the call for sites, for industrial sites, for housing sites, traveller sites, which probably didn't go down as well with a lot of people that put the comments through. But we did get a good response, over 100 responses, of which the planning policy group and the planning department is now looking at them individually. But we haven't got a timetable for what comes next. It's just been launched, so that's the start of it. So it's so different. Yeah.
No, it's Councillor Fale next. No, it's Councillor Fale. Then you can come back in.
Councillor Fale, please.
No, the procedure is you ask a question, get an answer. Then you can ask a question. That's the procedure, I'm afraid. So you can come back after Councillor Fale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over many years, Labour councillors have pressed for a sound plan, a plan that serves the best interests of residents. Sadly, despite Labour's objection in 2017, this council voted to send a flawed plan to the inspector. The plan adopted in 2019 remains flawed. It's good that the partial review proposes a lower objectively assessed need, but by not removing or reducing allocations, there's a very real prospect of over-delivering on housing. It's noted from the review consultation that there is a disappointment in the decision not to review the highway and transport evidence, and given the unchanged allocations, it's hard not to be sympathetic to that view. A 2005 Cabinet report recognised congestion on the route is a major barrier to growth at Fleetwood Port and the economic regeneration, and to the economic investment in the Fleetwood/Thornton area. The report went on to say that a link road between the M55 and Fleetwood Port should be actively promoted in the regional spatial strategy as a priority. Revealingly, the report says housing provision should be a response to economic growth and not a prelude to it. 17 years on, and it seems this council has disregarded that report. Some seem satisfied by a mains lane bypass that promises no improvement for Fleetwood and Thornton-Clevelys. Hopefully nobody is satisfied that we have an underperforming enterprise zone along with a low uptake of employment land. So jobs have not materialised, and even with the mains lane bypass, the transport situation will be worse than it was in 2005. It seems the council continues to build houses in the hope that this will be a prelude to economic growth. Having seen the scope of the partial review, nobody should be under any illusion that the changes being made would remove the fundamental flaws in the plan. So it will fall to the major review to deal with the fundamental issues that exist with regard to climate change, a provision of public open space, quality, quantity and mix of housing, employment opportunities, transport connectivity and specifically the reinstatement of the Fleetwood rail line. That full review must introduce long-term red lines for development within Wyre, including the separation between towns. The full review may be this council's last opportunity to draw those red lines. Not doing so will ensure the situation will become irretrievable, with Wyre being incapable of rectifying the acknowledged shortfall in public open space in all its towns and unable to provide the required jobs and infrastructure. At this time, though, we have an updated plan before us that marginally improves matters, but it's not the plan we want or need. The Labour group will not attempt to block this and instead will put our energies into trying to ensure that the full review addresses the issues Wyre residents face.
Sir Robert Atkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I only wanted to come back to Councillor Collinson on the specifics. Clearly, it is time limited, the full review. Colleagues will know, I think, that we've already had some joint meetings of the Planning Policy Group and the Climate Change Working Group. I just wanted to be clear, and if you can't say tonight, through you, Madam Mayor, then perhaps we can establish, for the benefit of colleagues, on something where contributions can be made either individually or by committee or policy group, whatever it might be. Because clearly, whilst we're already 4 or 5 months into it, it's going to continue for another 18 months or so, and there needs to be some clear guidance as to the timings of our submissions. And if it can't be done tonight, and I understand that, then perhaps someone through the Democratic Services or whatever can explain to colleagues exactly what that process is.
Yes, I did ask that question of what was there a timescale for certain things, but they've only just got the planning allocated that people have written in for. So they've got to go through that, and then I think we will know better what the new programme is really, because we don't know as at this date. Because they've just finished the partial review, and then...
Thank you.
We've got 3 more speakers. Before then, can I just remind you that this is the partial review that we are talking about this evening now. So, Councillor Turner, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I just wanted to make that point that Councillor Fylde appeared to go off track again. You know, a lot of that stuff, as you mentioned in that obviously pre-written speech there, will be dealt with at the full review. This is the partial review. It is good news because the objectively assessed housing need has come down, and we now are required to use a different formula to work out the number of houses and etc. that we need. So I welcome that, and I think most of us will, because it takes a little bit of pressure off. The government fortunately realised that it may be better to put more houses near the main centres, and so that does help protect the more outlying areas. So I think it's a good thing, but we must stick to the point. We can debate this another night, the full review another night. Thank you.
Councillor Ballard.
Yes, Paul, it's reference to the portfolio holder. It's the partial review was clearly told that we had to take that upon once we got our full review at the last point from the inspector. So the partial review has come in, and also the figures have changed, which we've tried to address, which this partial review is going to do. Therefore, we're also looking forward to then the full review, which is going to be other parts reference to it. And I'd just like to clarify something, reference to Hill House. I don't know where he got his figures from, because there was 400 staff on there when it first started. I think there's in excess of 3,000 now. So, don't know where he got those figures. And also there is companies who are relocating to Hill House because he hasn't got the space to grow, to get employment, and he's actually going to start building on there, and he's going to put the infrastructure in, and he's looking for staff to go. So, hey-ho.
Do you want to respond?
I'd just like, it was something that Councillor Fylde said about the roads. It's in the report that due to the reduction in housing, this was put out to 3 highways agencies, and they didn't think that they needed to add to the report because the numbers had been reduced.
Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as Councillor Turner points out, that the speech Councillor Fylde gave was obviously pre-written, and that's fine. But what's most concerning is that he sat down, thought about it, printed it, and brought it in, and stated in it that the council continues to build houses. When was that? I must have missed it. Also, Madam Mayor, the report he mentions from 2005 is not evidence. It is old enough to drive a car. That's the sort of length of time we're talking about between 2005 and now. So, ridiculous evidence to try and rely on. Planning law changes a lot in 17 years, Councillor Fylde, and planning law binds this council and its policies. And the sooner that the Labour group accept that and work within the remit that we are lawfully allowed to work within, the sooner they'll actually be doing their jobs and representing their people, because they won't just be coming up with pie in the sky about building this and doing that and having all these jobs before building the houses, because planning law doesn't allow for that. So it's just grandstanding, Madam Mayor, and the sooner they engage with it properly, the better.
So as there's no further questions, Councillor Collinson, as the proposer of the recommendation, is there anything you would like to respond to the debate? So that concludes the debate. Would members please vote now on the recommendation? Those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? The recommendation has been carried. 33 for, 33 for and 6 abstentions. So that is unanimous.
It's not unanimous.
Oh no, it's not. It's not now. Oh God. Right, we'll move on to item 10, the Constitution Scheme of Delegation Amendment.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, sorry to interrupt you, but can somebody bring Councillor Baxter back into the room, please? Just before you start.
Yeah, before I move on to item 10. Have we gone?
No, we had to go out.
No, I know we did. I just wondered where we've got. Yeah. So, item 10, Constitution Scheme of Delegation Amendments. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose any recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. I'd just like to remind members that the last major review of the scheme of delegation, which forms part of the Constitution, came before the full Council on the 28th of October 21. A further review has been carried out to tidy up some few minor changes to the current executive and non-executive officer delegations, mainly to ensure the scheme accurately reflects the current practice. So therefore, Madam Mayor, I put 3.1 recommendation before members. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal? Thank you. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Right, that concludes it. We can go straight to the vote. So, those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 11, Members' Allowance Scheme. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. The recommendations I put before you was 3.1 to 3.8, and the only comment I have is I should like to thank the members of the IRP for their sterling work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Second that, Madam Mayor. Can I just say that in terms of paragraph 3.3 of the recommendations, I think it's right that the hard work that Councillor Mckay does as Chairman of Audit is recognised. She does an awful lot of work on that.
We all agree. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? So that's concludes it again. Would members now please vote on the recommendations? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous again. Item 12, Overview and Scrutiny Committee Annual Report. Councillor Ibsen, would you please introduce your report? Are there any comments, questions for Councillor Ibsen? So he has a chance to respond. No? Thank you. The report is noted. The next item is item 13, Periodic Report, Audit Committee. Councillor Mckay, would you please introduce your report?
Yes, reports before members. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'd just like to say a big thanks to Claire and her team. They've done a sterling job again this year. They have been let down by the external auditors massively. But, sorry? Everyone else? Yeah, they have been massively let down this year. That's the only reason the prior year accounts haven't been signed off yet. We are still waiting on the external auditors, but, you know, they do an incredible job here at Wyre, so thank you.
Madam this council is very lucky to have excellent officers as we have. We've got an excellent chairman that understands what they're actually saying to us. because sometimes the things are extremely complicated. I'm thinking, who else is on order here? Tom. Yeah, and it's very difficult to get a head round sometimes, but thankfully Madam Chairman knows exactly what they're saying and guides us very well.
Yeah. That's why you've got a raise.
The Chief Executive Officer would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Councillor Mckay. And I just think it's important, and I think it should be minuted, that the reason why the accounts have not been signed off is not because of any internal problems with staff. It is because of external problems. We have been promised by those external providers that the accounts will be signed off month after month after month after month, and they still haven't been signed off. And I have actually asked for a note to go on our website to state that, because we get pressing enquiries who want to blame staff for failings to sign off the accounts, and that's not correct. So I'm glad that you've debated it this evening, and I'd like that minuted. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So the report is noted. The next item is notices of motion, which is item 14. However, there are none. So that concludes the business for this evening, and the meeting is closed. I would just like to say thank you for attending. I hope you all have a wonderful Easter with your families and enjoy the time that you can. At least this Easter is different. So thank you and good evening.